So if you guys have seen the title of this video, you guys might be scratching your heads as to what the hell I'm doing, to which I like to say, I have no clue. So evolution is something that occurs in every species, and interestingly enough, it also occurs in certain phenomenons, such as mathematics, science, and, well, you guessed it, computer science. We started off with something as simple as electrical circuits, it evolved into mathematics, and then it evolved into C which evolved into Python, and now, Yassa Taiseer will evolve it even more. Today I will be building an app that writes Python code, and you get to tell it what to do, just with the use of your fingers. Wait, that sounds like coding. Okay, no, it's an app, and you basically just like command the app, and then it's just gonna work. All right. So if I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure how this will work, but Python has this thing, and every language does too, where you can inject code, or no, you can inject like writing into like a text file. So I'm thinking of playing around with something like that. So let's see how it goes. Okay, so I think I've gotten the first part of this ready to create a variable. So I'm making a simple function that takes the file name and the variable and then the value. It inserts it into a Python file, and then it's going to insert it into a variable.json file. The variable.json file will be required later, and I'm going to explain that in a bit. So let's just try and run this for now. What the fuck? Okay, so I finally gotten the errors. Like, I've gotten rid of the errors since I'm a genius. The error was that, in case of any of you guys are wondering, was that the file wasn't loaded before, so it didn't know what to do. And also because my variables.json was empty, so I've left this like blank variable. So I know that's not ideal, and I could probably fix it. But the thing is, I'm kind of running on a time limit here because I don't have a lot of time. And, well, if it's working well, don't fix it, right? Don't overcomplicate your code and whatnot. So I've created this variable, and I'm going to call it name, and the name is Yassa. It runs, creates a test.py file. So as you can see, there's no errors whatsoever. And then there's a variables.json, and then it has the name and Yassa on it. Okay, now the next thing we're going to work on is deleting our variables. So let's do it. Okay, I'm back after about 10 minutes worth of coding. I realized that it's a lot smarter for me not to include the JSON file and instead just write the code directly into the file, whatever, like the file name. This is because instead what I did was I just looped through the file line by line and checked to see if the file name is in there. And this is a lot better. One, because I have to do less work. Two, because we don't have separate files. So because there's less files and there's less dependencies, our code is a lot more scalable. So let me show you our code currently. So I have this test.py where I had the name Yassa. Now over here we're going to be deleting it, right? So the name was So file name's test.py, and then our variable is the variable name. So let's just run this. Okay, now let's go to test.py. As you can see, we've actually removed this altogether. Okay, now if I were to, I don't know, let's just suppose if I had the word, what's something very similar to name, like name 101 is equal to Yassa. All right. Now watch what happens when I delete the variable. So what should happen is that only the name variable should be deleted and not name 101, even though they both are very similar. Oh no, crap. Okay, so quick update. Turns out the problem with my original algorithm was that it just didn't work, to be honest. So instead, my new algorithm, what it does is it reads all the lines from the files and then checks to see if the variable is found in those lines. If it's found in those lines, it's not going to write it. Otherwise, it will write it. Is this the best possible idea? Absolutely not. Because if I have 1,000-line code and it would have to run each and every single one of them. But it is what it is. So let's just show you guys. So there's a name, and then there's like this gibberish, and they're both equal to Yassa, which doesn't matter. All right. And I'm going to delete the variable in test.py that is called name, and run this. Okay, that's just some weird printed stuff I wrote for debugging, but don't worry about that. If you go to test.py, you see that we have now been able to delete our code, or delete that line at least. So we've now been able to create variables, delete variables. Now let's try and print variables. Okay, so as soon as I started coding the function for the printing out the variable, I realized that if we print out a variable that doesn't exist and the person using this app, I guess, well, imagine someone using this, but if someone were to use this app and they use the function to show a variable and the variable doesn't exist, then Python's going to start screaming like a 70-year-old that just did cocaine. So I first created a variable that actually checks to see if the variable exists. So this test.py had this variable, whatever the hell this is, and when I do check var in the test and then the variable, and I were to just run this, it prints out true. So that means that, well, that basically means that this function works, or at least I hope it does, because I'm not fixing this later. Okay, so I kind of forgot to like do a video for my coding montage, but doesn't really matter. Anyway, so I've finally made my show var, so let's actually test this out. So before I'm going to test, I'm just going to show you guys what I did. So I just take the I take the file name and then the name. I check to see if they both exist in the check var function, which does most of the talking. Alright, then what I do is I simply make a string which has the print, like the print brackets like in Python. Then I open it, I write it, and then I write a new line, and then I'm going to just close it. Okay, let's just run this out. Okay, nothing happened, which is, oh no. Oh, this isn't that big of a deal. Okay, so it just show print name, but it has a error regarding, oh, it just writes on the same line. So I'm just gonna, the first thing I'm just gonna write is I'm gonna go f.write /n. Okay, now let's just try this again. And boom, yes, we got print name. We did it. Okay, so now if we were to just run the test.py app that we generated using pure code, boom, we printed out our name. That's right, this is evolution, people. Okay, this is the next wave of code. Okay, so in case if you haven't noticed so far, this making a machine that writes code for you is pretty difficult. Now, obviously, I'm not going to just give up right away, even though I may or may not have thought of that. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do the basic things that programming can do, such as adding strings, like adding variables together as new variables, and maybe, okay, I likely won't do anything like for loops and functions. This is mainly because Python is based on indentations, and implementing them might be a bit hard. So right now, I have no freaking clue about what I'm doing. That's me like 99% of my life. But for now, I think what I think is the best option right now is just to keep on trying and just seeing how far we can get. And boom, before you know it, I finally created the adding variables. For once in my life, something is actually working. So this is how it works. So this is my current test stop. Pretend like that didn't exist. Okay. Yeah. So, all right, I'm just gonna remove some of that. Okay, so I have this name and other variable. So I'm gonna write Yassa is cool. Yes, I know it's a bit cringy, but whatever. So what I'm first do is I create this function called advars. It has your file name, and then it has the new variable name, which can be an old name as well. right? And then it has args, right? Because sometimes people like to add multiple variables together. That's usually not a good practice for an inexperienced programmer, but let's face it, if you're using this app, you are likely an inexperienced programmer. Now, what I do is I just loop through the args, and then I just simply keep on adding it to the string I made, and then add the plus sign to it. And however, if the variable you made isn't found, it's just going to immediately cut the function and just return an error. All right. So it's sort of like a compiler. Yeah. Look at me pretending like I know all this shit. Okay. So let's just see how this goes. I'm just going to run this. All right. All right. And yeah, let's see. So the new var, and it's just a name plus the other variable. Okay. And in fact, now let's actually use our print variable, the show var, and let's just print out the new variable, new var. Okay. And see, it's all coming together. And boom, Yassa is cool as printed. All right, so as you can see, I've been able to automate this code quite a bit. So currently I'm in between crossroads of thinking of ending this video or continuing on with this video. I will let you guys know soon. Okay, so I decided to add one last function to my I don't have a name for this yet. I should probably name this. I think I'm going to name this the Python code creator. Yeah, that's a good name for it. So for the Python code creator, I created one last function called add imports, where you would just add an import like Pygame or something. So let's just test it out. So it works the same way as most of the other files, or functions, I mean. So there's the file name and the module. You make your module. You inject it into the Python file. Yeah, there's not really much to it. Okay. All right, and now we're going to go to test.py. You can see we have import pygame right there. Now you might be wondering, what if the module is incorrect, right? So I've realized that that is an interesting question, and also that I'm going to choose to ignore that. That's because oftentimes oftentimes there's a bunch of libraries that are unheard of, but they do exist. So I figured to just leave it into the user's hands. Okay, so now I've created roughly about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 functions, right? So then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a console application. I could also do this with like a GUI application or a web application, but I'm just going to use a console application for the sake of the simplicity. If you're watching this and want to improve on that, go ahead. I love seeing creativity. So I'm going to first of all make this into an object, or like I'm going to make this into a proper class with inheritance and whatnot, and then I'm going to make a console application. So I'm going to do all of that tomorrow. So for now, good night. Okay, so fast forward 2 days. I finally made the classes. I'm not going to really go through them. The only thing you really need to know is that I made a constructor for the file name, because it's kind of annoying to constantly tell the file name. All right, then I just made a simple user input, like using the command prompt, and that's how it's going to work. If any of you guys are watching and want to actually build on this, be sure to do that. I could care less. Okay, so let's just get this thing started. So run Python file in terminal. Okay, first thing we're going to do is write the name of our file. So the name of our file is, what's the name of our file? I'll just call it test. Okay, we'll just create a variable. The variable will be called name. And what is the value of the variable? It's just going to be Yassa. Okay, did that work? Yes, it worked. Yeah, so now we've officially written Python code without using any actual, without writing any actual, what's it called? We just wrote some Python code without writing any code. Okay, now we're going to write another variable. It's going to be called name2. Okay, and it's going to be called, the value is going to be Bruce Wayne. One more thing, by the way, the only reason why test.py is outside of the directory is because I forgot to cd it. Okay, because I'm running it within another directory. Okay, the next thing we're going to want to do is add a library. So I'm going to add Pygame. I think it's pie game like that. Okay, next thing I'm gonna want to do is just add add variables together, right? So the first variable is going to be called the new variable is going to be called new underscore var, and then the variables that I'm gonna want have to be separated by a comma, right? So it's going to be name and name2. So name comma name2. Okay. Oh, and I'm also going to want to show a variable, and I'm just going to want to show new underscore var. Okay, and I'm just going to quit this. All right, now let's just go to test.py, and let's just try and run this. And boom, now we've actually written some real Python code without actually writing the code ourselves. So this is a process of something called abstraction, where I've evolved from something basic like coding and made it into an entirely new thing. Obviously, this concept is existent already, but this was supposed to be more of like an introductory as to how we as computer scientists can evolve our current skills to something newer. I know I sound super smart right now, but I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing right now. So be sure to leave a thumbs up, like, and subscribe, and all that kind of crap. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.